Leader, you are a leader. You are a leader. Rising right up the ranks. You're a leader. Lessons will teach you just how to reach your endless ambitions. Oh, yeah. Look at yourself in the mirror. Turn that frown upside down. Show what you're working with. You can't depend on someone else to see a future. That part is up to you. Be a leader. You are a leader. You are a leader. Rising right up the ranks. You're a leader. Lessons will teach you. You gotta be just how to reach it. Endless ambitions. Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast still. Welcome to the August installation of Legends and Leapers. My name is Ebony Wimbush, the President and CEO of AMAC, and I want to thank you for joining us for another engaging and dynamic Legends and Leapers conversation. This is the first one since our in-person Legends and Leapers event at the annual conference, but boy, we have a good one today. So before I introduce our legends, leapers, and our moderators, I want to tell you about some of the exciting things that are happening at AMAC. Of course, to realize our vision of creating economic equity, access, and wealth for minorities, the national office, the board of directors, the committee, the foundation, the PAC, we're working hard to ensure that we're building an organization that supports our members, the thousands of women and minority-owned businesses, by advocating, by educating, by developing programming and engaging our members to create opportunities. So a quick overview of some of the upcoming things. In terms of advocacy, we've just finished our second stakeholder session for the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking for the DBE and ACDBE program. We're asking that if you have additional comments to please submit those to info@amac-org.com. On September the 26th, we've got an AMAC Meet and Mix event held by our Southeast region in Atlanta. So check out the calendar for details on that. On September the 27th, we are hosting an ACRP AMAC event, expanding DBE participation in aviation with ACRP and AMAC in Washington, DC. On October the 6th, the Baltimore, Washington AMAC local chapter will host its meet and greet. So of course, there are lots of other exciting things happening with our organization. Check out our website. So you'll see information on local chapters, renew your membership if you have not, and check out committees and the opportunity to volunteer. So now for our Legends and Leapers program and why we're here today. Just as a reminder, Legends and Leapers is a monthly virtual conversation, except those in-person events at conferences, between an aviation industry legend and an emerging leader designed to showcase the commonalities and the differences in perspective on the aviation industry. And we've got a great one today. So our legend, Michael Svagdis. Michael, you know I had this and you messed me up. I was gonna say it in the Boston accent and that wasn't gonna work for me. So Svagdis. Did I get it, Michael?
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
Yeah, you got it.
CEO, president at SSP North America, one of our great corporate partners. Thank you for joining us, Michael. And we've got our leaper today, Chelsie Tamms, artist, brand designer, and entrepreneur behind the Lettering Works LLC, a Chicago-based ACDBE certified company. So as a reminder, certainly put your questions in the chat. But now I'm going to turn it over to our two moderators, Ricky Smith and Lauryn Mangum Reed. Ricky and Lauryn.
Oh, I'm starting off first. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ebony, for that warm
Creating all
welcome.
this confusion right out of the box. Just go for it.
I don't know if anyone saw in the beginning with our wonderful theme song, Ricky was showing his age by raising the roof. Was it just me? Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here and joining us today for Legends and Leapers. I'm going to jump right into it and start introducing our two panelists. So I'm going to go, let's start with Chelsie. I feel like a lot of people know who Michael is. Chelsie is a new, truly emerging leader, a new face. And if you were in Chicago, she definitely showed up and showed out for all the Chicago peeps. But Chelsie is the artist and entrepreneur behind Lettering Works LLC. It's a Chicago-based ACDBE certified modern brand design studio on a mission to create, inspire, and empower people through art. Chelsie founded Lauryn Works in 2016 while attending Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, and winning $10,000 in startup funding from Bradley's annual student entrepreneurship competition. She spent 3 years in Peoria growing her business, working with the local museum, airport, city, and countless local businesses before relocating to Chicago in June of 2019 to pursue the same on a larger scale. Throughout her career, Chelsie has focused heavily on personal passion projects that showcase her interests and attract aligned clients around topics of community building, kidney disease, chronic illness, and arts advocacy. Some of her most well-known projects are 100 Days of Peoria and Chicago, Cool Beans, and Steph Stickers. She has published 2 books, Just My Type of Lettering and 100 Days of Peoria. In addition to customized visual branding and artwork, Chelsie has a line of art products that are sold in local gift shops in Chicago and beyond, including the Field Museum, Chicago History Museum, Marshall Retail Group's liquid candy stores, and Garfield Park Conservatory, as well as online at letteringworks.com. Chelsie is dedicated to giving back to the creative community and teaches artists how to build sustainable businesses around their passions through her signature online course, Self-Made Artist Academy. When Chelsie isn't designing, she can be found eating ice cream, traveling internationally, and starting a new passion project. So welcome, Chelsie. Super excited to have you. What's not on her bio, she's also a member of the Emerging Leaders Committee and a total rock star. But I'm going to get into our legend for today. So as the leader of the North American Food Travel Expert Team, Michael's top priority is to ensure the entire SSP team is aligned around the collective belief that every airport in North America has a local culinary story to tell. As a result, SSP is passionate about bringing cool, authentic restaurants to airports in North America that reflect a taste of place. Michael and his team share an incredible passion for community anchored dining. Food and drink should deliver a taste of place. The design of our restaurant should inspire, and the service comes from the heart. A recognized leader in the food service industry with a passion for leading corporate growth, Michael is a veteran food service professional dedicated to culinary innovation, operational improvements, driving standardization, and aligning strategies with the overarching business goals. He has earned a reputation for his executive acumen, customer experience strategies, and solutions to increase sales while maintaining a positive accord with labor organizations. Before joining SSP America, Michael served as the Chief Executive Officer for Uris Dining Services, a division of Compass Group and a leader in large-scale employee dining services for a major global corporation. Notable for their operational complexity on expansion campuses in multiple facilities, peak rush hours, and quick service mandate, Uris culinary programs included dozens of proprietary local and national brand concepts on campuses. Michael was responsible for only $1.3 billion in revenue, 16,000 associates, and more than 1,400 locations. Michael also held various increasingly senior positions for Morrison Healthcare, a division of Compass Group, culminating with his appointment as president of the company. Michael provided leadership and strategic direction to operations, marketing, and sales teams. He was responsible for the company-wide operating budget of, again, only $1.1 billion, with revenues of more than $850 million and 48,000 associates. So Michael, I mean, you just kind of got started getting your feet wet in this thing, clearly.
Yeah.
How has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, Michael has some work to do.
Right?
So you may not have it's because I'm the lead moderator. I tried to give Lauryn a chance to serve in the lead role, and she jumped right into introductions. I gave her a chance. She didn't step up. So what the lead person normally says is one, just to give you a feel for why we're here. So Legends and Leapers is this idea, this notion that we could bring two different individuals, someone who is more seasoned, if you will, in the industry, probably more established in the industry, and someone that's not so seasoned, certainly not as established in the industry as an individual or an organization. And we can get a different perspective. I think what we've experienced over the months now, this has been going on for almost 2 years now, is that there's a lot of commonality in their thought, but there are occasions where we see a difference of opinion. And so that's what this Legends and Leapers is all about. We don't ask any questions that might, challenge their technical acumen, because that's not what this is about. This is about giving you a peek into just what they think about certain matters, certain topics that may be top of mind. And I think, as Ebony and Lauryn stated, there will be an opportunity for you to flood the chat room with questions as we go through. So if it's okay, Lauryn, I'll jump right in with the first question. Does that work?
Let me think about it, Ricky. No, I'm just playing. So technically, Ebony stole your shine in the beginning, so that's why I jumped right in. But I'll stop to give you an opportunity to speak. So please, Ricky.
I appreciate it. The two women are just throwing me off, and the smile really kills me. I'm not even going to look at you. So anyway, well, let's start with this in the first question. So as you know, audience, those of you that have participated before, we do not share any questions with them in advance. That makes it a little fun. As a matter of fact, Lauryn and I often do not even know what the questions are going to be before the lights come on. So I was actually writing down questions as Lauryn was trying to take over the program. And so I do have about 3 questions. So anyway, here's my first one. So we just completed a very successful conference in Chicago. The energy coming out of that conference surpassed the energy going into the conference, right? People are already looking forward to San Antonio. But by almost any measure, that was an enormously successful conference. I think both of you were there. Michael, I think I saw you dancing at the Chicago party. Didn't recognize you were dancing so hardly. And Chelsie, I think you may have been dancing with them. But be that as it may, Michael, you're a large organization. Chelsie, you're with a smaller organization. From your perspective, why should you guys be supporting AMAC? What is it that AMAC does for you, or what is it that you want to achieve in your respective organizations that AMAC provides that platform or that ability to support?
Chelsie, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'll jump into it. I think just my experience going from joining AMAC just over a year ago to where I'm at now is the reason that it works. It's exciting. It's an amazing experience. And so for me, it was attending the virtual conference, jumping into being part of AMAC after a recommendation from the Women's Business Development Center here in Chicago. And the goal was really to meet people in the industry, because it is a daunting industry, especially when you're essentially a business of one, which is me. I've worked with some contractors, but for the most part, it's just me working and trying to figure out how do I meet the right people to make this happen? And so what my experience looked like was joining the virtual experience, connecting with people, really realizing, wow, everyone's so helpful and nice and willing to make these introductions, is excited that I picked aviation as a place to maybe put some time and energy and see if I could make it work. So then fast forward to this year's conference, and I got roped into being part of the Emerging Leaders Group, had been active with that all year, and got thrown into co-hosting, co-moderating the cocktails and conversations at the conference. So I think that just goes to show how quickly you can just be part of the family of AMAC and get all of those connections and get that experience. So even being here today just feels crazy, because I haven't been part of the aviation industry for entirely too long. My start was in Peoria, and that is a night and day difference from Chicago. They have an airport gift shop run by the GED program in the Park District, which is amazing, but very easy to get into. Every other aspect of the aviation industry is much harder. So I think it's the connections that's, especially as a small independent artist and creative, just being able to meet people and being able to meet them through the context of just like, we want to support each other. And there's not that like pressure or like breaking through these like walls and barriers is much easier when you have people who automatically by default like are excited that you're here and want to know how they can help. So that's just made a world of a difference. That's why I'm still here, still trying to figure out exactly how to break into the industry and be part of it. But so much has come together by just showing up and seeing all of these amazing people come together to say, oh, you're really good at this. Let's find a place for you. And it feels like not just me trying to break in, but like all of us trying to help me figure out where I fit. So I think that's hopefully the best testament to AMAC just being such a strong force for individual businesses. So I'm excited to hear Michael's perspective as well, the much larger total other end of the spectrum.
Well, before Michael jumps in, Chelsie, when you use words like roped into and thrown in to being engaged with AMAC, it begs the question, so did Lauryn have anything to do with influencing you?
Lauryn may have had a lot to do with pushing me into something slightly outside of my comfort zone, but also something that I needed to do. But I think that's the beauty of it. It's not, everyone's like, you got to do this. You're up next. Like, this is your thing. So yes, you're technically roped into it, but it needs to happen to get you to where you want to go. So it's the most loving kind of roped in you can get.
And for the record, it wasn't a rope. It was like a light string of yarn.
Okay.
It didn't take much. So
it truly didn't. Shantae and I stepped up pretty quickly and easily when we were asked to do it, but we didn't volunteer ourselves. We were quickly volunteered in a very logical way that made it work for everyone, but we had to represent Chicago well.
Well, Michael, I guess you were roped and thrown into it as well, huh?
No. Just the opposite. I was very interested. If you mentioned at the beginning, Lauryn, excuse me, now on the board of AMAC, which I'm very excited about. And Ricky, thank you, and Ebony and Lauryn for giving me the confidence in doing that. But going back to the conference, as Chelsie said, networking is super important. We have 80 plus ACDB and joint venture partners that we constantly learn from. It's amazing, the different perspective I get from potential new partners, as well as people new to the industry, about what they need to be successful within the aviation industry. So that's been, for me, one of my top things I go there for. Another one, quite frankly, is recruiting. Every conference I see is a recruiting opportunity for our company at SSP America. We're always looking for new talent, and it's great because it's diverse talent that's there. And, to me, just meeting new people, finding out what they do in the industry, and then as new positions come up, that, making sure that connection's made via LinkedIn or something like that, because potentially they could bring a lot of value to our organization, has been super helpful. And then for the sessions I sit in, it's funny, every session I bring a little nugget back of, wow, that was a really good idea, and how can we work better with our current partners? Because you're listening to a lot of collaboration and discussions in these different sessions, and we go, whoa, I never thought of that. And we need to make sure we change who we are as an organization, because then it even supports our partners even more. So there's a lot of learned lessons in the sessions. And of course, there is the dancing. It's one of my favorite things, Ricky, and as you did witness. There's always a good social event at AMAC, which is fantastic. But over the years, every conference I've had, I've again met new people that bring value, have learned new things, and then continue just to meet new people in the industry who at the same time bring value to us. Another one that happened to me this year too is potentially 2 new partners, not from that perspective, but potentially buying product from them, which is another thing we as an organization are really trying to get much better at, is working in our supply chain with minority partners. And it was 2 people I met during a conference that I connected with our procurement department, and there's huge possibilities there as well. So it's just constant learnings and networking. It's been just amazing. And I think the attendance this year was one of the record attendances, which was fantastic as well.
Well, Michael, you don't wear your leadership on your sleeve, right? You don't go out announcing to people, the role that you play with SSP. Some people are often surprised to hear so that Michael guy is in charge of SSP? And I think some of that is intentional. I know you, so I know some of that is intentional with you. So, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Chelsie, from a different perspective, because you're new on the scene, and so a lot of people don't know you only because you're new to the scene. But trust me, we're going to put your telephone number in the chat box, and so all the people on this call will know you and they will call you. Can both of you tell us something that's either not known or not understood about you that will help that person understand what you really stand for or who you really are?
I'll jump in first, Chelsie. Ricky, I think I told you this, I'm not sure, but I know some of my team members do. I'm passionate about AMAC for a lot of different reasons, but a big part of it is my upbringing. So my mom, I talk about my dad. People say, how'd you get in the industry? I talk about my dad who owned a donut shop and a bakery. It's really my stepfather, but when we merged two families together, my parents at the time, so we don't use step. We are one family, father, mother, step words down, step brother, everything else. So when my mom divorced my father, we moved back to Boston. She didn't have two nickels to rub together. We lived in a very, very rough neighborhood in Dorchester, Massachusetts, quite frankly, where I was the minority. And it was interesting to be on the other side of that as a child. And it's going to sound silly what I say, getting picked to play basketball, getting picked to play the sports, everything else. You kind of were that person. Hey, hate to say it, he's the Caucasian guy, right? And it was really eye-opening to go through that and feel that. And even to the point, it was funny, back then, it was Judge Garrity who started busing within Boston. I was actually bused into an all Caucasian neighborhood, which was another thing that was very weird for me to experience because I felt very comfortable over time living in that neighborhood in Dorchester, built a lot of friendships, and this thing called busing started. And you saw the racism and everything else. And I'm on a school bus where not nice things were being said to people in the bus, things are being thrown at the bus. And I'm literally, one of the two Caucasian guys on the bus. And it was very revealing for me at a young age to see that, play out in our society. And again, because of that, it's kind of made me very passionate about making sure that DE and I just forget about my work environment, my personal environment. It's super, super important to me.
Chelsie.
Yeah, so I guess my answer, some people know this, but when I was in 8th grade, I had scoliosis and a spinal fusion surgery. And I feel like that's had a huge impact on how I've run my business, how I've just approached life in general, and how it relates to aviation, I think, or just trying to figure out my place as a business owner is mostly trying to accommodate some of those challenges of not being able to stand for a super long amount of time. Doing physical events like booths and trade shows is very physically taxing on me. So I try to come up with creative ways around that. So I think that's something that you can't necessarily tell if you met me at the conference. You may or may not know that, but I have 2 metal bars and about 17 screws in my back. So it was a really intensive surgery when I was in 8th grade. It took 11 and a half hours. I was out of school for a month or two. And that really shifted from I participated in all different sports, all these different things throughout my life that I was used to just being part of. And it kind of shifted when I got to high school. I didn't make the volleyball team because I was in physical therapy trying to get my arm to be able to reach full range of motion. So that kind of did this pivot early on that really put me into I love art. I'm going to double down on that. That's what I enjoy the most, and start to create this other path that isn't necessarily the traditional corporate world, but also isn't I'm working on my art, but also working a part-time job in a coffee shop, because standing for that long is pretty difficult. So I think that's kind of created my path in a way that not everyone reads between the lines or sees when I share the exciting wins or even challenges that I have. It doesn't always center around that, but there's always this thread underneath of trying to do this strategically. I'm trying to not open up my own airport gift shop necessarily, but send my products to somebody who has the staff who can man it, because we all know when you're running a shop, you end up, or just a business in general, you end up being all of these different roles. So I've tried to really build a business around what I need to do. And sometimes that's working from bed or working from the couch instead of a table, but that doesn't matter all of the time. You can create a business. And that's what motivated me to teach other artists about that, because I know there's a lot. I mean, so many people have hidden health issues, chronic illness, all of these different things. So that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about and try to bring into my business and how I do things and how I approach things, because not everyone sees it on the surface level, but it's a big part of the behind the scenes. So I know some people probably know that story or part of it, but that's a huge motivator for why I do things my own way and try to build a business that really focuses on how it can support me, but also like allow me to be creative and successful without having to do some of the things that are just personally challenging for me.
Well, as Lauryn gears up to ask a question, I just want the audience to understand that during the dress rehearsal, Chelsie did not say one word. I warned you, Michael, didn't I? I warned you that she's a sleeper.
Yeah.
Almost stoic.
Yes.
I think what you both just shared is why I love Legends and Leapers so much. A lot of times, and it's not just our industry, but just industries, you have events and you have panels and whatnot, and it's always very business oriented, right? And COVID, and how can we work on X, Y, and Z? But to hear you guys just share just a little bit of your history, a little bit about who you are, and kind of why you do what you do, the way that you do it truly is inspiring and absolutely amazing. And Michael, it's okay. You can just say it. It's funny because you started talking about Boston and growing up, and all of a sudden I was like, I didn't know Michael was from Boston. That Boston accent came out so heavy. I was waiting for him to say something about his khakis, like the whole thing.
Park the car.
Yeah. But Michael, honestly, you're amongst family. You can be the white boy that gets invited to the cookout. It is all good.
Hey, I used to be a DJ, so it's all good. That's I was the guy doing the tables at the party, scratching.
That's the first invite. That's
Okay, okay, Michael. Now you're scaring us. Michael's
like, actually, I can work on the opening song. Let me put some beats together. But Michael, we're not gonna hold that. We're gonna hold you to it at the next SSP party. No need for you guys to hire a DJ. You can just get back there on the
back in the day. Yeah.
But a lot of what Chelsie talked about was passion, and a lot of times you mentioned it too, Chelsie. You said your passion, you have created your passion and your purpose. You really created a business out of it, and you mentioned the fact that like you're not working at the cafe, being a barista, part-time or but you're doing your passion full time, right? My question for both of you guys is, what are you passionate about outside of your respective businesses?
You want to go, Chelsie?
Yeah, sure. I think I try to bring as much outside passion into my business as possible. So I'll answer this by saying all of the passion projects I've done, which have really kind of launched different phases of my career, like 100 Days of Peoria, for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of what it sounds like. There's 100 different illustrations about Peoria local businesses. So when I first started my business, I wanted to establish myself as somebody who cared about the community, who cared about local, connect with local businesses. So that's an example of like bringing in that love of like community, love of small businesses, independent creatives, and all this vibrancy that makes a community really unique and highlight that. So I guess as a more broad topic, what I'm most passionate about is giving artwork and kind of this connection point. So like my goal as kind of a business owner is to create and inspire and empower people through art. So create art that any community, it could be a community that's huge, like Chicago, there's a ton of pride already here. Create artwork to further that pride, to connect people together and like show more of our similarities versus our differences. And then the further I've gotten in business, the more specific I've been able to get with creating designs around scoliosis, because there's not a lot of positive messages out there in that realm, or kidney disease. So I have kidney disease, my family, it's been a long history. So being able to create a project around that, which has led the Passion Project, which was a fictitious concept of a restaurant with a renal diet, led to working with the National Kidney Foundation here in Illinois. It led to working with a pharmaceutical company. It led to all of these cool opportunities that were really allowed me to take that passion and get paid for it, which is kind of my goal ultimately, is like, how can I use as much of my time to highlight these patterns, which I think if I had to summarize it really short, it's just creating artwork for underrepresented communities, whether that's somebody with a disease that they feel like there's nothing positive out there, no one can connect or relate on, or it can occasionally be geographical, whether it's a neighborhood or an entire city, or somewhere like Peoria that they didn't have any postcards when I was there. You couldn't actually send a postcard to say, I love living here, you should come visit. Nothing was there. So that really created the spark for me and that passion to fill that need, to find a need and fill it. And if it can relate to people's identities, to make them feel better about themselves and who they are and things they choose and things they can't change, then my work is done. That's what I want to continue to do.
That's beautiful, Michael. And I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball, because I know food. You grew up, like you talked about your dad and the bakery. So outside of food, right? Outside of where you are right now from a professional standpoint, tell me a little bit about your passions.
It's really mentoring young adults and making sure they're super successful in their life, no matter what career path they choose. I've been on the board everywhere I lived, except now I live in Washington, D.C. And believe it or not, I try to get on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. Very passionate about that as an organization. As a young adult, if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club, who knows what would have happened to myself and I have 6 brothers, 1 sister. We spent all the time there. It kept us off the streets, and a lot of bad things happen on the streets. And it was good from the perspective that athletics had taught you, but at the same time, they had a really strong program. When you came there, you had to do your homework first. My mom was busy working, 8 kids. We're all about a year and a half apart, running around inner city Boston. It's pretty chaotic, if you could imagine. Mm-hmm. So ever since I became an executive of an organization, I've always been the local chapter I would join. I'm still trying to do it. They have a full board right now here in DC. So I'm super passionate about that. And then, of course, it's kind of funny. Not funny. I work a lot. I travel a lot. My wife said to me during our 20th anniversary's coming up, and that she saw me more in that 18 months than she did in the first 23 years of our marriage because of the travel schedule I've had. So I am very passionate about doing the same thing within my work environment, because as I look at all these hourly team members that come into our business, that help me make a living, quite frankly, I'm very passionate about giving them a career ladder within our business so they can be successful, buy their first car, buy their first home. I'm just methodical about that to make sure those opportunities are there for them, because I just think it's super, super important, because if our hourly associates is very diverse population, at the same time, they know our business, they grew up on our business just like I did. And I just think it's great to tap into that great, local knowledge of our business and to bring them up with it. So I like to do it outside of work as well as inside of work. And then it's just my family, because I'm always working. I hate to say it. I do boring life, no hobbies, but I'm very passionate about it. But then there's, of course, my family. That's why I work so hard, is to make sure I can take care of them, every day.
So Ebony and I had a very good dinner last night with a couple AMAC members. And we got into this discussion around, how can AMAC meet the needs of a very diverse membership, right? I mean, split it however you want to. AMAC has a very, very diverse membership, and some aspects of that membership are more prominent than others, right? And again, you can slice and dice that however you want to. But the question I'm going to ask you all, and what we learned from that discussion at dinner last night, is that although we tried to spend a lot of time talking about our differences because we wanted to kind of understand the differences, it wasn't easy to do that because we kept coming around to how much we had in common, right? And so that kind of made the dinner even more interesting. But both of you are AMAC members, and you're bringing different perspectives. Mike, you've been around for AMAC for 100 years. Chelsie, you 15 minutes, right? So different perspectives. But why is it important that AMAC meet or attempt to meet the needs of all the various diverse populations in our organization, right? Why isn't it enough for AMAC to just focus on what people typically see as minorities, and that's African American or women? Why is it important that AMAC focus on the myriad of populations that the organization is supposed to represent?
I think Michael kind of said it earlier with just looking at this conference for multiple reasons, like looking to recruit. It's such an ecosystem where everyone needs each other for something, whether that's support because we all share struggles with work-life balance, or support in just the similarities that we have. But there's also, we need the big businesses to teach some of the smaller businesses how to set up ourselves for the airports. They need us because they need our products, or they need us to be employed by them so they can run their stores or they can run their restaurants. So I think everything connects. So what I love about AMAC is the like family aspect of like, we're going to acknowledge that everyone plays a different role and every role is important. So I think that just making sure that there's space for everyone to come to this group of people and say, I need help with this. And we don't just know a subset of people, but we know the whole aviation industry so that we can say, here's the person for you to talk to. We didn't silo ourselves into just a small group, but we have a really good landscape of all of these different types of people. And so now we can plug you in and we can figure out how to really support you.
I'll piggyback a little bit on what Chelsie said. I'm a firm believer, if I just look at my executive team, so I look at who I interact with, if you really look at the entire, diverse population of the US, I think it's great to tap into all of them because it's just going to bring new thoughts and ideas, and it's going to bring new energy to AMAC. There's a lot of people that we interact in our different markets that are not part of AMAC right now. And I think if you pull them in, new ideas are going to come. There's going to be new energy. The goal is to grow right now the membership, and I think there's a great opportunity to do that. But all of that brings is this new way of thinking, which I think all of us, I know all of us want and cherish, because it just makes us better as leaders, and at the same time will make AMAC even that more powerful. Is it a little more difficult? Absolutely. Will it be worth it? Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna probe a little bit more and hone in on one particular aspect of this diverse population, and that is the A&E community, the architectural and engineering community, the professional services community. They're not concessionaires, right? So I know Ebony has been spending a lot of energy trying to entice that group and to grow that group as a part of the AMAC family, and Dwight Pullum has been, her sidekick, leading that effort as well. So both of you are concessionaires, or you're related to the concessions industry. Do you find an expanded focus on the A&E population to be a competition with your membership at AMAC? Do you find any value in having that segment of our ecosystem be emphasized at AMAC?
Yes. We use a lot of architects and engineers, and we each try very hard to find people locally that are tied to the community that really understand the airport. If they don't understand the airport, sometimes it's a little more difficult because the airport's more comfortable with. But yes, I because as we continue to grow as an organization, to have a bigger network with the architectural and engineer community would be a massive help. Absolutely. Okay. And I think through AMAC is, again, a great way, going back to the first question of this, the networking. We usually have very strong attendance from our companies from a business development perspective. And the main reason they're there is looking for new partners and all aspects of this. It's not just departments on the concession side, but it's architects, engineers, it's procurement type, supply chain things. So it would definitely bring value.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, I'm still figuring out where I fit in. So maybe it could be with architects if they need branding or some type of art element in what they're building. So I think that's what's really cool about AMAC is like, there's so many things that sometimes we think are individual, but there is overlap of like, they might even need products for a launch that's a one-time only thing. So the more we connect these industries, the more we can actually be in the right place at the right time and have our services fit in versus treating them as siloed different segments that don't have overlap. Because as I said like earlier too, like we still can relate on so many levels. Maybe we're talking about work-life balance, or we're talking about something, and then we're learning how they work and how, oh, I never thought I could fit in this way, but they need a presentation deck, or they need some insight from a concessionaire because they're trying to put together a pitch and they need to figure some of those things out. So I think there's so much common thread, especially speaking from somebody who's very new to the industry. There's so much to just learn. And I think that everyone in AMAC in all different facets knows some of the basics, and they can always be sharing that with younger, newer people who are coming in. So making sure that we don't just write ourselves off as, I just go to concessions events. And I will say for the conference, my favorite part of it was switching from the conference track and just happening to go to the professional development track with Shantae Young. And it was just like, it happened. I got outside of like what I was doing because I was like, you know what, that session sounds great. I'll go with you. And we walked over, and there were so many great nuggets that we got from the panel discussion that I think is proof that sometimes we think, oh, this is my track, I'm going to go to that. And we don't fully acknowledge that there could be it could be a thing for us to learn in a different area that we've gotten so boxed in and just haven't taken the time to like get a fresh perspective. So I think that is a huge value as well.
Well, this is where I pretend to have another question, but not have another question, and hope that Lauryn is ready to ask another question.
Well, first off, I do have a question for you, Ricky. So you and Ebony went to dinner and I didn't get an invite? I mean, you just let us off. I don't know if Michael and Chelsie feel the same way, but I took it personally there for a moment because you said it twice.
Well, she's not here, so I can throw her under the bus. Ebony invited me, so.
Were there Baltimore crab cakes involved? That's my only question. Like,
No.
okay, all right, I feel better then. Thank you. So you guys, something that I always like to talk about, Chelsie, because as Ricky put it, you're 15 minutes in, right? And you are a business. Essentially, you are a powerhouse of one. So this question is for Michael. Michael, you've been doing this for quite some time. You put a strong emphasis on diversity and also creating opportunities for people within your organization and within your community. But talk to me a little bit about your thoughts as far as succession planning and what that looks like, and what either you personally or your company is doing to really promote and work on that succession.
So we believe, well, so it's been probably, gosh, it was a little interesting during COVID. So I've been with SSP now 8 years. And really when I got here, we take talent management plan. We have a very detailed talent management plan for every regional vice president, down to every airport, down to the hourly supervisor level, where we go through and we're talking about each individual. It's a massive spreadsheet that now is web-based, where it goes through A, are they willing to relocate? B, what are the top 3 development areas they need to get to the next level? Has, of course, their latest annual review that they had, the score they had on the review. And then what's the development plan for the top 2 areas that they need work in? And then we literally talk about where's the movement within that airport. Can they move up, or within the region? And then so we do that quarterly. We do that every quarter. There's an HR regional people person who does that with a regional vice president. Each regional vice president has about 7 airports that they go through. And then we look at it on an annual basis, the executive team and I, where are our gaps and where do we need to bring people in, because we know, because we then overlay the potential growth. And then we look at it from all aspects of the business. Do we have diverse candidates that are going to move up in the business? Do we need to bring them in if we don't have them? What is the age? Because quite frankly, you have age issues too, because we found 3 or 4 years ago, our talent that was ready to be moved up, we said, geez, they're at an age they're going to retire potentially in 5 years. And we need to look for a younger generation and start working more on the younger generation and get them ready for the business. And I have a new boss now, if anybody hasn't read that, probably about 3-4 months ago, named Patrick Coveney. And what I was excited about, it was one of the first things he talked about to me when he came. I said, hey, well, we got a fantastic process. I can go through all of it. I could show you our emerging leaders and who could be promoted next. We usually rank it by 18 months to 2 years, and then 3 to 5 years. And we had to go through with him those key development plans for those people with 18 months and report on them on a quarterly basis. So it's pretty detailed and organized. And I tell you right now, with the way how hard it is to find people right now, I think it's even more important, and having those conversations with them so they're aware what their future is, so we don't lose them to competitors or even a different industry.
Well, a question that both of you can weigh in on is, so we've gone through this thing called the COVID pandemic that has changed all of our lives forever. We like to hope that we're on the tail end of it, and to some degree that it's behind us. We use the word we're in recovery a lot. From your perspective, where are we with respect to this pandemic? Do you feel that we're out of it, that we're working our way out of it, that we're still in the midst of it, that we're concerned that it may resurge? Where do you see, from your perspective, we are with this pandemic?
Go ahead, Chelsie.
Yeah, tough question, because I feel like it's heavy for all of us. I think that the fatigue is real on every level. The perspective that I really see it still being existing, and unfortunately, like, still a huge problem, is within the chronic illness community and disability community. So my dad has had 2 kidney transplants in his life, and that makes him really susceptible to illness. So still dealing with that, still making sure that we're being as precautious as possible. He did end up getting COVID a couple months ago and luckily recovered from it. But that, I think, reminds me, like, we're not through it, and you still see people getting COVID and having different reactions to it. So I think from like the person level, it's still happening and we still need to be very cautious. From the business level, I think we're still struggling to fully get out of it in terms of the fatigue of, for me, like what I'm personally experiencing is the fatigue of, okay, I got used to doing business a certain way because the pandemic slowed us down. Now life's ramping back up. How do you juggle the two? So I think that's kind of the next phase we're entering into, is like, it's hard to go back out and be in person and gather with people and like be at that level we were pre-pandemic. So I think that's the next phase we're into, like calibrating, like, how do we do both things again? Because we got used to all social, whatever we did pre-pandemic, then we got used to, okay, we have more time for work. That's kind of cool. And now we're getting back to, okay, life's fully ramped up. Like Lauryn, I know you were just on vacation. I'm headed out of the country this next week. So like juggling that and actually taking a vacation, all of these things I think are just, that's the challenge. And then I'll let Michael speak to more of the big business side, because that's a whole nother world and like where we're at with COVID as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to piggyback a little bit on Chelsie. I mean, so I have a brother who's fighting cancer. And to your point, Chelsie, he lives a different life because of the risk of getting COVID. I've had it 3 times. I'm fortunate I'm healthy, that one, no fun getting it. Out of work for 4 or 5 days, feels like a really, really awful flu. But for him, it'd be a whole different experience. So he not lives in fear, but lives a cautious life. So there's that group of people, to your point, from a personal perspective, that are out there that are a little more cautious. And then there's another group out there who could care less if they get it again, is my opinion right now, because I'm witnessing that. But from a business perspective, it's the new normal. Hopefully, knock on wood, there's something, one of the Omicrons or whatever the next one's going to be called, isn't deadly and doesn't put people in the hospital again. And again, it's more of a flu type COVID. My concern is, what's the long-term effect on our country and the world? They're still doing a lot of research on that. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. I was with a group of people last night. All of us have had it more than once. And each one of them said, my memory's not as good as it used to be. Another one is, I used to be a runner. I don't run anymore. I'm still exercising, but I can't run anymore. I try to get to that second mile. I can't do it. So there's these after effects that we're going to see. But from a business perspective, everybody keeps thinking these millions of people are going to come back in the workforce. I think they're gone. We have to continue to realize this is it. This is the way it's going to be. And we have to get really smart on how do we be more efficient, use technology, and then how do we create a very good experience in the hospitality industry as a whole? Forget just food and beverage in the concessions. I mean, I know my experience with the airlines, my experience when I go out to a restaurant, my experience for whatever I do in hospitality is we have to get smarter to be more efficient, but still give an overall incredible experience, because I would hate to see the mindset globally even of, well, it's okay to give poor service now because things have changed since, this thing called COVID happened. Because I think we can't give up and have to keep working it hard to get back where we were as a society, of really making sure we go above and beyond to, people paying for a service, give them the value that they pay for.
No, that is a really good point. I think lately it's been like, well, we're short staffed, so give us grace, and trying to figure out from an innovation standpoint, whether it's technology, whether it's just getting more creative, because we do have to step outside of what we've been doing for the past, for the past decades, of how do we continue to give you everything that you're looking for and more, even with less bodies.
Yeah. Well, if you read about it, I mean, there's the Spanish flu. I went and picked up the book when this all started, and what's happened this time is almost identical. It came back a couple times. Everything else is like you think someone would have learned.
So we have a couple questions in the chat. Chelsie, a question for you. Oh, look at this. Chelsie, how did you get involved with the emerging leaders?
Yeah, I typed the answer as well. I attended cocktails and conversations, I think at the virtual conference, and that was when there was a call to, if anyone's interested in being more involved, send us an email or respond to the follow-up email. So I joined the committee after that, stayed involved with that throughout the year, and as I mentioned earlier, was part of planning our events at the conference this year. So just jumping into it from that simple invite. So let this be your invite if you're interested in joining us on the Emerging Leaders committee, that you can just send a message to either Lauryn or myself, and we can get you connected in the info to join a meeting, see if it's for you, and you might be the next one leading an event next year at the conference.
You see how she roped people in there, Ricky?
I know the people are jumping.
roping them in. Okay, another really good questions, guys. And feel free, if you haven't done so already, you can go type in the Q&A chat any questions that you have for any of the panelists and or moderators. So another question, for the new AMAC chapters, how do we find out about meetings and volunteer opportunities? Ricky.
So I'll take that one. Just as some background, during the last conference, the membership approved the initial 8 chapters that will be formed. And so the chapters development committee is working with the national office to formalize those chapters. And there are representatives of each of the 8 areas that are holding a variety of events to recruit and inform people in those respective areas around the chapters. The 8 are Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, Houston, LA, Portland, Atlanta, Detroit, and I'm drawing a blank on the 8th one. So I expect Ebony's screen's going to come on in a second and tell me what the 8th one is.
Chicago. Did you say Chicago?
I said Chicago. So I said Baltimore, Washington, that's 1. Chicago, Houston, LA, Portland, Atlanta, Detroit.
Denver.
Denver. Thank you, Denver. And so if you are interested in participating in any of those chapters, what I would suggest you do is you provide us your name and email address in the chat room, and we will have a representative reach out to you and put you in touch with the local organizing committee.
And also, just a tidbit outside of local chapters, but as far as local events and also as far as AMAC Stores events, you can always find those on the website, and make sure that you sign up for the AMAC newsletter so you can get all of those real-time updates in regards to all of the events that Ebony mentioned in the beginning, but also all of the upcoming events that AMAC will either be hosting and or a part of. So Michael, there's a question for you in the chat as well. What impact has COVID had on your team's decision-making and multitasking abilities?
Well, it's kind of interesting. In the middle of COVID, it was pretty clear who couldn't multitask, because it was complete insanity. And two things you saw, it was interesting. We were moving along normal, and when all hell broke loose, we really saw people rise to the top, who did very well under stress, a lot of multitasking, a lot of quick decisions to be made, and really had to have really good communication skills because it was changing so often. And it was great to see that. There were other people, quite frankly, didn't handle it too well, which was great learning experience for us to say, what are we doing about communication skills and training and within our teams? What are we doing about multitasking, how to really multitask and hand it and really reprioritize, because we are reprioritizing every day, every week. So it was very helpful. And I could probably list another 5 to 6 things that we did as an organization that made us a better organization, that was positive that came out of COVID. I keep looking for the positives that came out of COVID, but how we restructured some things, processes we changed within our business. And again, a big part of it was because of COVID. And we kind of stepped back, and we were growing so fast pre-COVID and had time to really think about how could we make the company better. And that was one of the key ones, is how do we retrain people to multitask and deal with crises, and how do we help them reprioritize, because our business is always evolving and changing. I know personally, I changed even more as a leader because of what happened with COVID. But one thing on the decision making is, which we need to get out of, and I don't want to sound insensitive, but I'm going to be transparent, is we're always going back to my earlier comment, Lauryn, and you commented on it, is we keep saying, well, we can't do this because of COVID, and we can't do this because of COVID, and we're short staffed. And I'm like, no. We're going to go back. We're going to raise the bar. We're going to get back to where we were as an organization. We can't use it as an excuse. We are the new normal. And we're going to get back to the food travel experts doing a fantastic job. We're doing a great job now, but we got to continue to, raise the bar on ourselves, and can't use that as an excuse in our decision making.
So it is 2:58 now. We still have a lot of questions coming in. There will be AMAC, what we call it, AMAC After Dark, or AMAC After Legends and Leapers After Dark. And so you can stay on and continue to ask some questions, and we will respond to those questions. But before Ebony comes on to close out this part of the meeting, I do think it would be appropriate if we have a moment of silence for one of our dear friends that we lost over the last few weeks, over the last week or so, Dwayne Hurd, who has been a mainstay at AMAC for many years. Anyone that he has interacted with or touched or considered a friend is truly suffering from this loss. And so this is, every now and then AMAC loses a member of its family, and it hurts, but this one really cuts deep. The number of calls that I get, text messages that I get asking me did I know about it, or sharing experiences with him. Quite frankly, unlike many of the other losses that we have. So if we could just take a moment of silence and acknowledge our love and our grievance for the loss of Dwayne E. Hurd.
Thank
Okay,
you for
thank
that,
you.
Ricky. It's important that we celebrate our legends while they're here, and acknowledge their greatness when they're gone. So I appreciate you bringing that up. AMAC will be actually sending out information around his homegoing service that is scheduled for this Friday. So be on the lookout for it in an hour or so. This was a fantastic Legends and Leapers, as always. I learned a lot. People probably think, oh, she turned off her camera, I'm not listening, but I'm like intently listening. I just don't want you guys to see my expressions. But I'm always learning something from both Legends and Leapers, and certainly, it's really wonderful to hear these human stories. Ricky is right. We all have more in common than we have differences, and that's really the beauty of this very inclusive organization and how, as leaders of this organization, we're working very hard every day to ensure that everybody feels welcome, regardless to their race, their gender, their disability, and all of those things. And so I want to thank you guys for coming. And now this is the fun part. I turn it over to Lauryn, and then I occasionally come back on like, because this is great when there are really like so many questions that people will come off the chat, and Lauryn has a host of other questions. So Chelsie, Michael, again, thank you for being this month's Legends and Leapers. I'm excited about the great work that, Michael, you're going to do on the board. We're actually meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
We won't have a Maryland crab cake, but we'll have something good. And Chelsie, the work that you'll be doing and continuing to do with emerging leaders. Thank you very much. Lauryn?
Thank you, Ebony. And just real quick, last week, we actually lost 2 within the industry. So Dwayne Hurd, who, we were all loving on in Chicago, we lost him on August 27th. On August 22nd, Michael Ty of Hospitality Culinaire, who was an ACDBE with HMS host in Las Vegas as well. So we lost 2. Yeah, we lost 2 last week. So definitely sending our love and condolences to both families for sure. So the Q&A is blowing up. I want to make sure I get all these questions because I had all the juicy questions going into the after show, but we only have a little bit of time. So I definitely want to make sure that I ask these questions of both of you. So Michael, real quick, you talked
about Aaron, and Lauryn, I'm hopping off because I have a hard stop.
Ricky, you didn't have lunch?
Who signed her contract? Who signed her contract?
It's fine, Ricky. I hold it down anyway, so bye.
Thanks a million, guys. You're in good hands. Thank you very much.
So,
Ricky.
Are the best diversity initiatives born of morality, do the right thing, shout out to Spike Lee, or effective business teams as far as like insights and innovations from participants? What do you guys think as far as best diversity initiatives? How are they born?
Go ahead, Chelsie.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think you could probably make an argument for either of those. My gut reaction would probably be more towards like they know what's right inside or can empathize better. I think we see a lot of that where people are trying to learn something, but they don't feel it inside. And if they don't feel this actual connection to another human being, it's really difficult to like fabricate that. So not to say you can't create that feeling, but I think that's really, from my experience, what makes the difference. Not just reading something and being like, oh, we don't do this anymore. We don't say this anymore. This is how we approach this. It's like actually understanding the humanity underneath it and making sure that that's where it's coming from, a place of like not trying to do the correct thing, but like actually understanding that people are equal underneath all of this, and that's where it should come from. But that I'm not a diversity professional by any means, but that is what it means to me in creating those spaces. And when I see that happen out in the world, it feels like we are moving towards the right direction.
That was an excellent answer. And I'll just reinforce it. I've seen a lot, even any initiative in a corporation, if it's on a foundation of morality and people are passionate about it, it's going to be much better. Then you're going to end up getting the great business insights. I've seen so many companies that have rolled out their DE&I plan and the executive team wasn't passionate about it, and they're checking a box. A lot of great intentions and business insights, but yeah, it's if you're behind it 100% with your heart, it's going to be that much better. Absolutely. So that was a great answer, Chelsie. And yeah.
So another question, and I want to make sure Chelsie, you have a couple questions. So someone said that they saw your artwork at the AMAC conference. Where can they get those cool artwork cards from?
Yeah, so I designed special promo cards for AMAC's conference, and I do have extras. So if anyone would like them, you can just send me a message. Maybe email would be easiest. So you could just do hello@letteringworks.com. Send me a message. I'd be happy if you send me your address. I can send you some of those. Otherwise, you can always shop the different products that I have at letteringworks.com/shop. So yeah, thanks for your interest.
And Chelsie, one more for you. How did you actually find out about AMAC?
I was participating in the WBDC's airport GovCon airports program, which was maybe 8 or 12 weeks, something in that range. So we had different speakers come from the aviation industry to talk to us about like how to break into airports. So that's sort of how I got my start, and a couple different presenters recommended AMAC. So it worked out perfectly. The class kind of wrapped up and the conference was coming up. So I just went all in and said, I'm going to become a member, go to this virtual conference and see what happens. And now I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Michael, how can concessionaires enhance the passenger experience when working with fewer frontline staff members? You talked about it a little bit, but let's kind of get more in depth with that.
Yeah, you know, I'll talk about more of the operational stuff first, and we'll talk about the people stuff. I'm a big proponent of and do every year an employee engagement survey, and super passionate about it. I was very excited when we did it this year. We had about an 85% participation rate. So 85% of our employees actually responded to the survey, and it measures their engagement, but also gives us a lot of wealth of information of what we need to do for all of North America, then specific to each airport to get the employees more engaged and create a great work environment. It's the number one priority right now. Going back, I am convinced we're not going to get back to the staffing levels that we had. I don't know where all these people went. They're not back yet. COVID's not out. People keep saying when school reopens, there'll be more women coming back in the workforce. I do believe that, but I don't think it's going to fill the gap. So it's about doing some type of engagement survey, and we build a custom action plan for each airport and responding to what their requests are and what they're saying about the business. And then globally, we actually communicate it to them. We say, we've heard you and we're doing something about it. And here's the 3 things we're going to do to address your concerns this year. And believe it or not, it's not pay me more and all those kind of things. We mostly union, those things are addressed that way. And so you're showing them that you care, and then recognize them and thank them. I mean, again, everybody's so overworked right now. It's just keep thanking them. And every day we have a shift huddle, which we bring the team in for 5 minutes to kind of talk about the business for the day. And one of our goals is to recognize someone every one of those shift huddles and thank them. We have a thing called the Passion Awards. And a little thing I do, I send a birthday card to every employee. I travel around with them. And if I know who they are, I make a comment on it. When I'm traveling through the business, it's great. Oh my God, you sent me a birthday card. Thank you so much. Because I think right now it's all those little things. And then secondly, if you're not doing technology, do technology. I'm a fan of it, but I'm a big believer of that 3-foot experience. But right now it's going to help you with your lines. It's going to help you with your speed of service. We're very fortunate. We're still busy right now out there. So bringing technology into your business, getting your hourly team members to embrace it and to tell them how it's going to make their job easier, I think is super, super important to do. And then it's all the other things I said, consistently communicating how much we appreciate them and thank them every day. Because, I know how many job openings we have, and we've had them for 3 months, and I've raised my wages 25%. I still can't find people. It's eye-opening. Yep.
Wow. So you definitely honed in on your team, your personnel, your employees, and really enhancing their experience. And are you saying that in enhancing your staff
Absolutely.
experience,
Yes.
it's enhancing the passenger experience?
Yes. Well, think about it. If they like where they work and they like their leadership, they're going to give the customer a great experience. If they're coming into thank you for that question, by the way, Lauryn. If they come into the business every day and have a leader who's not grateful for what they do, a leader who's not communicating to them, they're going to give 50% of the effort. They have someone, again, I don't say manage. To me, it's about leadership, right? Right now, I think in the environment we're in, leadership's more important than anything. If you're leading them properly, they're going to have a great attitude, and that's going to just flow right into, to the guest experience. And part of our shift huddles that we do every day, we have what we call our passion principles. And we talk about one of those passion principles every day, and why attention to detail is important, why service from the heart's important, why sincerity every step of the way is important, why innovation is being open to new ideas. And that's, the noble at all times, or passion. And we talk about them every day, and why it's important to execute those principles and give it a great guest experience. Yep. One flows. My entire career, my philosophy has been really simple. My number one thing is focus on the people, get them engaged, great leadership, and that goes right into the guest experience. Absolutely.
And I know, back, I don't want to say back in the day, because it wasn't that long ago, and I also date myself. So for a time, we always heard, oh, technology is going to replace all these jobs, and technology this and innovation, like it was almost looked upon as a negative thing. And now we're at a place where if you don't have innovation, if you don't have technology, you're behind. So has your staff and has your team been receptive and accepting of the innovation in technology? And what specifically are you guys doing that's been helping them, whether it be your team and or the passengers as a whole?
I'll take it. At first, no, weren't receptive to it. People in the restaurant business, again, go back to they believe in that 3-foot experience, but as COVID continued and they really realized, again, the hourly team members aren't coming back to where we were before, they started embracing it. And the best thing was really to educate everybody on the value it brought to the guests and the value it brought to them personally, because it's got to be, how does this benefit me as well? What's in it for me? So that was a big part of our training. We learned that because we were always training them on why it was great for the guest experience. And what we added about a year, maybe even 16 months ago, was why it's good for them and what it's going to do to make their job easier, maybe get them more tips if it's a server or a bartender, and the value it brought them. And then we've seen them embrace it more and more. And the last thing we did, we had a conference and we had 6 or 7 airports that embraced it exceptionally well, or our top performers with it. And we actually had them do the training and talk about their experience, because no better way than to learn it from their peers and hear from the peers how well it works. And that then, as we came out of the conference, we started to even excel more within our business.
That's awesome. Well, I would be remiss without saying this. There is an individual, we took some major hits last week. There's an individual that I want to add to the memorial list, and that is Brian Lacey out of Atlanta. So please keep the Lacey family lifted in prayer and condolences as well. Thank you both so much. I've known you both, and I just feel like I just took a next layer and got even deeper. And again, just a phenomenal Legends and Leapers. You all are absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to Chelsea's artwork being everywhere. I'm looking forward to Michael DJing at the next SSP party. I'm speaking it to existence now. But I want to thank you both so much. I want to thank everyone for attending and staying on and hearing about these phenomenal individuals, and respectively in their own right as legends and as leapers. And do not forget, we have Legends and Leapers once a month. I believe it is the 3rd. I'm not even going to quote it wrong because Ebony's back on, but just thank you all so much. And we look forward to seeing you in person at some upcoming events. Ebony, take it away.
You close us out. Again, thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your engagement from the audience. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.